Hello, guys, and welcome back to Cryptic Humility. I am here with our guest speaker,
Maximilian Brichta.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show, Max. We are so excited to have you. Max and I connected on LinkedIn a little bit ago, and we were talking about the biggest issues in the crypto market, which is essentially what Cryptic Humility is about, trying to end all the scams, scheme, fraud, and other things happening in the market. Max has a lot of experience, and I'm very excited for him to be here today. Specifically, he's going to be talking to us about meme coins and some other things that are interesting in the crypto market. So without further ado, we have quite a lot of things to talk about. I'm going to pass it off to Max, and he can first share how he got into crypto and basically why he's on Cryptic Humility today.
Sure. So I have a story that's probably similar to a lot of people in the space, or at least the people who have sort of come in one of the latest cohorts. I was learning how to invest in everything at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And that was a time when Bitcoin was reaching all-time highs, when GameStop and AMC were just starting to crack off. And it seemed like you could throw your money at just about anything in the market and you could win. And this, myself along with a lot of other people, I think felt like, oh, wow, we're good at this. We're actually making money. We have some intelligence around this thing. Or if we weren't making money, then we were trying to figure out, how do we solve this sort of puzzle of how to invest? And my buddy invited me, he showed me what Bitcoin mining stocks were and just how volatile those were, even more volatile than Bitcoin itself. And I got a little bit of exposure to that and was wondering, okay, what's behind this? What is this Bitcoin thing? What does it do? I'd had people show me Bitcoin at several times, years in the past, and I didn't think of, I didn't know how to invest back then. I didn't need it for, the dark web or anything like that. So I just kind of ignored it. But then it became interesting to me, and I started to dig deeper into Bitcoin and all of the other cryptos that were sort of spawning in its wake, and trying to understand how people are both making money off these things, but also what is this sort of future that people are getting excited about being a part of, not just investing into, but about participating in. And so my research for the last 4 years has focused on that element of it, is how do people get into these participatory communities around cryptocurrency? What makes them latch on to all of the ideological sort of proclamations in there, and how do these networked publics, or what you might even call communities, but I'd like to put some quotes around that because it's kind of a sketchy term. Why are these communities so-called so enduring? And so I wrote my dissertation about that, and I'm happy to talk about that today with you.
Absolutely. Yes, we definitely want to hear about that. So just to give a background to people, where did you go to college?
Yeah, so I just graduated with my PhD in communication at the University of Southern California. I'm on my way to the University of Virginia, where I'm doing a postdoc researching the economic lives of Gen Z, basically focusing on this same research that I have been doing, but kicking it out into the more general digital financial space, and trying to understand people who have been raised in this generation of digital finance. How is that shaping our economic sensibilities? How is that shaping the way that we have a relationship with money, our relationship with risk, our relationship with budgeting, and the different authorities that are trying to tell us how to shape this relationship with our money, which is another way of saying, how has financial literacy changed with all of this change in technology that we've been experiencing over the last couple decades?
Absolutely. And I wanted to comment on the whole hype, if you will, in regards to DeFi, because I think so many people, like, I'm in my mid-20s, like so many people our age, we're so accustomed to technology evolving because we've been living through it. But really, like, digging into what is so exciting about DeFi, what is so exciting about fintech, why are people running to invest in meme coins, and really what how can we understand these things so we're better educated? So if we are to make any investments, we're making, educated investments for our financial future. But it is interesting, like the whole hype around fintech and crypto and why people are getting involved into it. So I think you're so right in exploring that and trying to figure out the lives of Gen Z. And I think crypto could potentially be a big part of that, as we're already seeing. And I definitely want you to talk about your research, and I definitely will tag everything that you have below: your website, your LinkedIn, if anybody's looking to reach to you, your email, because I read one of your research papers, if you will, about Kong, which was a popular meme coin that evolved. And it was super fascinating to read what you had to say. So I definitely have some questions for you, but I want you to explain to the audience what your research was about. Any and all details that you can. Feel free to dive into it. The floor is yours.
Great. So that's actually a perfect place to start. When I was starting to go down the sort of crypto rabbit hole, if you will, one of the things that I kept seeing over and over when I was looking for, what is the best information? How do I, make trades, and how do I find the coins that are going to actually make me money? Where do I find that information? And everybody kept pointing towards Twitter. I didn't have an account back then, and so I made an account and I started to go deeper and deeper into all of these profiles. And it only takes a few minutes to scroll down through the comments on some of these posts and see that there are people advertising for their coins and shilling and trying to bring you into what is going to be the next big meme coin or the next Bitcoin or whatever it is. And there is this sort of alluring rhetoric, all these posts that make you want to get into something early so that you actually have a chance of growing your bags as big as possible. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to find one of these very niche kind of coins that's just starting. Very naive at the time as to what this whole sort of fringe DeFi meme coin ICO space even is, and all of the kind of manipulation that kind of runs rampant on there. And I found this coin Kong. I wrote this research paper about it that I would definitely direct people to read, because it goes into depth about what I observed of how people got in, people like myself, but especially people who really wanted to deeply participate in this community. And that meant changing their profile picture, changing their handle. What I argue is they essentially became the meme. And people in meme coin, publics, they do this, and it's for the sake of the expansion of the network. The proliferation of this network, the continual expansion of it, really depends on people shaping their online identity, their sort of persona, to be this marketing persona, and to have everything that they post point back to giving this coin attention so that more and more capital comes in. That is the kind of basic logic for how meme coins work. But as people are doing this, you are kind of inducted into a repertoire of communication, of cultural practices, of rituals that you do, that all of it points towards how could we make this thing look great? How could we make this thing look like it is going to continue to go up? And even in the face of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and of people who are, even trying to point out the manipulation that's going on, how could we sort of cover that up and make this thing look like it's going to continue to be, the next coin that's going to blow up? And so what that paper does is shows how this is really a rite of passage. When you get inducted into these sort of communities, and you have to respect the sort of tribal elders as it is, and take up those repertoires of communication, because that is what is going to make this thing succeed. And if you break character, and if you break form, and if you start to bring negative attention to it, then that mimetic energy is going to start to crumble.
Can I ask you a question? So I wrote down that I wanted to ask you. You said this study suggests that investment and active participation in the promotional mechanism of meme coins functions as a passage of right into the digital risk culture.
Mhm.
So basically, what you're saying there that I mean, in my own words, are you saying that like meme coins are a rite of passage, as in like to understand crypto is to understand meme coins and how they function? Is it like you go ahead, explain.
Yeah, not exactly. I mean, meme coins are one small part. Well, I wouldn't exactly say small part. They're a huge part of the ecosystem right now. And actually, in some ways, meme coins are very instructive of the broader crypto space, because meme coins, in a lot of ways, in some ways, they're not trying to hide anything. They are basically saying like, yeah, this is all hype anyway. This is the success of a coin is based off of our ability to create an internet culture around this idea, and to have this idea persist, or if you're a scammer, persist long enough so that capital comes in and we could swipe it from investors. And so there is a way in which meme coins are a reflection of the greater space in a kind of more honest way. And that's not to say that meme coins are honest. That's far from it. It just it's not trying to feign that it's going to do anything. Meme coins are made to say like, yeah, look, this is just an idea. This is a picture of a dog with a mask on it, or whatever the picture is, and it's not some utility token like we saw in the 2017 ICO boom, where there was a bunch of coins that were coming out that says, oh, we're going to do this. Oh, we're going to have these features in the future. You just need to invest in us, kind of like a startup, and then we're going to build those things. And a lot of time with no intention to build it. And even if they did have the intention to build it, they already have all of this money. And so in some ways you're incentivized to just sell off right away and not even build the thing.
Right.
So is something kind of refreshing about meme coins, is that just it's this is purely for trading on a stupid idea, and if you want to invest at your own risk. But there is still a lot of snaky, dark, insidious stuff sort of happening in that space regardless.
Absolutely. And honestly, I think we can see that in businesses in crypto as well, because I cover so many stories on the podcast of new business startups looking to, and this is kind of venturing off meme coins, but looking to dive into their native coin and have people invest into their native coin.
Yeah.
But if the business model itself is not sustainable without the investments in the native coin, it's kind of in a similar way, a same situation as investing in a meme coin and not, with no tangible backing of that. But obviously meme coins are different than businesses and stuff like that. But I see similarities in that. So I guess I'll ask you, what were the biggest, benefits of Kong, and then also maybe some of the downsides of Kong? Because reading through your research paper, Kong was like dormant for a period of time too, correct? So maybe you can talk through that a little bit, the benefits of meme coins and maybe the downsides.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's very little benefit unless you want to talk about the benefit of the people who make money off of it, to various degrees of sort of recklessness and illusion. I mean, Kong only really lasted for about 2 months. There's nothing special about Kong, and that's kind of the point that I was trying to make. I didn't choose a different, bigger cryptocurrency, meme coin to try to do this study, because there's so many of them that are like this, where there are people who launch it with, you don't even necessarily know the original intention. Are they trying to just pump it up enough so that they could take all the money? That's what happened at one point. But people that were still there kind of recuperated it. It pumped again, somebody took the bag and ran again. And so these things they're not necessarily a scam on their face. I think the epigram that I have on that research paper is it's not a scam for now, at least. And I think that really captures what these things, how it feels to sort of be in the culture of these things, because at any moment something could change. An insider could decide that they're going to sell. Some information could get out that is, or like there's an asymmetry in information where all the investors don't know about it, but some of the insiders of the team do, and so they could sell out and make the money. So I find that there's very little positive in meme coins. I think that the vast majority of meme coin volume is scams. A lot of meme coins don't even make it past like $100,000 in market cap, and even when they do, a lot of them don't have the intention to turn into the next Dogecoin, as if we need something like that. So it's like at best at the time when I was naive in getting into these spaces and looking at it, and what I saw as the positive is that there is this participatory element where people are inviting you into something new, where you don't necessarily have to have any knowledge about the specific technology or how to do marketing or anything. It's a very exploratory space. And I ended up writing like a blog article about it, and a bunch of people liked it. And it was like, oh, cool, this is my first time actually publishing anything online about, this community that I now have an audience for right away. And so there does feel like there's something special about that. The dark side of that is that you are kind of being invited into this community where you don't necessarily know how much your effort is going towards painting an illusion, or how much you're actually participating in and believing in that illusion, and how sometimes it's necessary for the whole thing to kind of be an illusion for it to continue to expand. So I have a hard time finding anything very positive about meme coins at the moment.
I'm actually so happy you said that, because obviously on the show we cover all the scams, schemes, and fraud that happens in the crypto market, and so many people fall to the get rich quick schemes of meme coins. And it really is all the hype and also the lack of transparency. What's interesting is there is a transparency of meme coins, knowing that they have no tangible backing, if you will. But at the same time, there is such an illusion, as you're talking about with meme coins, about the legitimacy of them and how they have long lasting value. And definitely I would recommend to everyone who is listening that you absolutely should check out Max's research and what he's done through his website. One of the Kong one was about 18 pages, but it was just so fascinating to read and hear your take and the angle that you went with it, because you're so correct. So let's switch gears. And I know that you also had another research paper that you did that was about Dogecoin, and it was talking kind of about, correct me if I'm wrong, but if meme coins are more of a social benefit or an economic benefit, or
Right.
how do they work and operate in the world, and where are they truly benefiting people? And before we get to that, I think it's really cool that you mentioned too in that, talking about how meme coins thrive because of community and promotion. And is there anything that you want to touch upon with that, meme coins thriving with community and promotion? Because really it is just people feeling like they have a sense of belonging in this meme coin community and trying to promote it. Even in your research paper, you were talking about how somebody became the mascot of Kong on Twitter. So people will go, even if you don't have a comment on that, people will just go to great lengths to promote something that they believe in. And that is such a if you will, psychology to look into with human beings, why we do that if there's no tangible value behind meme coins. Just something interesting to comment on. If you don't have any comments on that, you can go right into talking about Dogecoin.
Well, I think that sets the Dogecoin paper up pretty well.
Yeah.
Basically, the Dogecoin paper was a follow-up, and I was taking a fandom class with the chair of my dissertation, And I don't I don't really participate in popular culture too much. I don't watch TV. I don't really watch movies or anything. And so a lot of the time I was sitting in this class not knowing what the hell people were talking about. But the reason why I was there is because I noticed that these cryptocurrency spaces kind of function like fandoms. It's people who are very excited about this one thing. They are contributing their own art around it. They're contributing their own articles and memes and merchandise in some cases. And it really does become this fandom that you are collectively participating in. But at the same time, everybody is there primarily because they are looking for a self-interested gain. And so it creates this tension between self-interested profiteering and collective ideals. And that's what I really tried to tease out in this paper with Dogecoin, which, you know, I did this study with Kong, which was some tiny little coin that disappeared right away. But Dogecoin, how does this, you know, the original sort of quintessential meme coin persist after all of these years? And what is the sort of cultural logic of how people are making that thing as big as it is? And this was at the time when Musk was really sort of latching himself onto it and showing up on SNL. And the big question in my mind was, what is this other sort of tension between pleasurable participation of being such a fervent fan of this thing, but also participating in something where there is at least the potential for exploitation? So like, what happens when Elon Musk and Guy Fieri and Mark Cuban latch themselves onto these communities of value? They know these are audiences, these are businessmen, and they know that there is a community of value here that is willing to part with their value if they believe that it's going to help legitimize it. And so like with Mark Cuban, he was saying, oh, you could buy Dallas Mavericks merch with this stuff. And if you do that, Dogecoin is definitely going to hit $1. And so he's using this same vernacular that they're using, the same rituals that they're participating in, and he's becoming the meme himself. He's becoming just this sort of figure that represents what the culture represents. And the culture gets to benefit from that synergy. They get to benefit from some very popular person bringing more attention to it, and he gets to benefit from them spending their money so that he could cash out and make dollars. And it's the same for any sort of influencer or anybody who could use their social capital to help blow this network up, but also reap the benefits of being a part of it. And this happens at all different levels. Even if you have, 1,000 followers, and you're like a micro influencer, or if you are the most, wealthy man on earth with the most followers out of anybody. So the logic is kind of the same, but there is always going to be these tensions between the individual and the collective, between just like having fun and also using this rhetoric of having fun to cover up the potential exploitation and the potential stickiness that everybody could be getting themselves into participating in these.
Right. And just to recap for everybody listening, in your research, so apparently Mark Cuban created a tweet trying to get people to invest in Dogecoin, which is so interesting too, because we're looking more into the social aspects of meme coins and how it is so easy for, and you're right, and any influencer to be convincing you to purchase meme coins. And we're going to ask for your advice at the end if anybody is I don't think anybody is really going to be looking into meme coins after this,
just
but
don't
obviously
do it.
yeah, I mean, true, I know. And honestly, that's why we had you on today. And your insight is amazing for new investors to be hearing this, because people can absolutely get lost in the hype. And then we also deal with so many illegitimate mentors and resources in the crypto market. Like, I fell to a crypto scam or a FX scam so many years ago. And because I was listening to somebody who very much was not educating me correctly and was out for themselves. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of people in meme coins. But anyways, so to continue on, I wanted to ask you some topics that I think would be good for people to know. So in your second article, you were talking about a tipping bot and that these are gifting economies. I just wanted you to talk about kind of what that is for people who don't know and how that works.
Yeah, so there's different kinds of value. There's economic value, and then there's more of this social value, or you might call social worth. And people who find themselves participating in these spaces, like me when I was just getting into it early on, I found some social value in being a part of this community, if you want to call it that. And so there, like with Dogecoin, there was a tipping bot on Reddit back in the day, and Dogecoin didn't really have any value. It was more like you were just trading, or you were tipping people in this kind of inside joke. Basically, you were using cryptocurrency in a way that was fun, and it wasn't, nobody was trying to really make money off of it. It was like, here's a couple of fractions of a penny. But even when you're producing memes, even when you are participating in the sort of marketing mechanism and going and shilling and so forth, there's a sense in which you're giving back to the network. And so when I was talking about this gifting economy element of it, it really is this sort of logic of how do you provide social value to the network, or perceived social value with everybody else inside the network, so that you're gaining something. You're gaining friendship, or you're gaining connections, or you're gaining something creative to do that is actually going to help continue to bring attention to the network, or modify it, innovate on it in some way. Gifting could even be like adding code or building things on the side that make it so that other people could use it in new ways. And so what I'm really talking about there is the ways that people innovate and find different ways to use the technology that weren't necessarily anticipated before, and use it for their own ends. So yeah, they're beyond the purely economic element of it. What you have to understand is that cryptocurrency and social media are symbiotic. They are inextricably tied together. I don't think you could really think about cryptocurrency without the social media element. And so all of the kind of social logic of social media is just blended with the economic logic of blockchains and all of the sort of tokenized things that are created on top of them. And so my research now is to try to understand, now that you have these two incentive structures that are inextricably tied to each other, how does that change the way that we behave in groups online?
That's so cool. I'm so fascinated by your research. I think it's crucial for people to know. And so I guess I will ask you, who should be mindful of meme coins? Like, who do you think in society is a target to fall to meme coins? What should investors do to do more due diligence if they're new, they're young, they're 18, and they're on Twitter and they're following crypto groups? Who is the ideal candidate to fall into these kind of things, and what can they do to be preventative against it?
Yeah, I think they're particularly insidious for people who don't really know anything about investing. It's very boring advice to get from your dad or from an investing website or something, to say like, okay, just take this money, invest it in a Roth IRA, invest it like through a Roth IRA, invest in some ETF and some index funds and things, and just buy it and hold it, and in 20 years you're actually going to have money. Well, a lot of people out there are like, well, I'm not waiting 20 years if I could double my money or quadruple or 100x my money just in a couple of days. And so it feels really sexy to jump into these meme coins and try to do that. where you think like, oh, as long as I get enough information, and as long as I know how to trade and read these charts and get in with the right communities and everything, and eventually get, insider knowledge if possible, then I could make a bunch of money. The game is rigged against you. There are so many ways that the game is rigged against you that it's difficult to tell if you don't have any sort of acumen in the space of how to understand. One of the kind of most abused phrases in crypto is that it's transparent, because there is a public blockchain and you can see all the transactions on there, that it is transparent and you could go through and audit it. That is true, but how do you interpret all of the behavior that is happening on the blockchain at any time? So for instance, I'll give you one sort of story to animate what meme coins could look like from the back end. After Kong, there was somebody who invited me to write a white paper for a new cryptocurrency. And naively, I said, yeah, I'll do it. But I saw what happened here. I saw that there was all of this exploitation. And part of what happened was that the team, or the people who were supposed to be leaders, it was unclear, which their wallets were. And so there was no way of tracking these people and seeing how they were trading behind people's backs and so forth. So I said, we're going to put the wallets of the team on the white paper, and you'll have a bot, and you could post that over and over and try to bring some transparency to this thing. Failed miserably. Absolutely failed miserably. What I saw was that somebody from the team was still pulling out $500 a day or $1,000 a day, and nobody was saying anything about it. And if somebody did say something about it on Telegram, that they would be censored by the moderators. Just because there are some wallets that you actually know the identity of, it's associated with somebody, doesn't mean that that's their only wallet. It's all it takes is a few clicks and you have a different wallet. So you could pretend that you're not doing anything, but be doing a bunch of insider trading in the back. And that was very evident with this project that I wrote the white paper for. There are asymmetries in power. Some people have the ability to take a big chunk of that liquidity out and basically just pull the rug at any point for these meme coins. There are ways to perform that, like the liquidity is locked and that it's safe and there's no way to do that. And then they will be able to do it anyway. One of the things that I would especially want to raise some red flags about is that the game is way different now, and bots are a huge part of meme coin trading. So nowadays, when people launch meme coins, it's not that they won't just have like them and a couple of friends buy right away. They have bots that are going to buy the moment that the thing is launched from various wallets to avoid other bots from buying early. And what this does is, if you buy earlier than the people who are trying to snipe, which is just to say buy in as early as possible your meme coin, then when those bags inflate, then you could pull out and make more money. There's services that are people sit on their computers and do this all day long. There are even bots called automated market makers that make it seem like there is a lot of volume that is being generated on some meme coins. And so you could think like, oh man, I'm in at the floor, I'm in super early. Look at all of, there's all of these people trading it and there's all of this volume, and yeah, I'm getting in super early. But what that is up to like 100 or hundreds even of bots that are selling just back and forth. It buys, and 10 to 20 seconds later, it will sell. And this one service that I'm investigating right now, they even say like, oh, we buy and sell at various times to make it seem more organic. And what the whole game, from the social perspective is, yes, make it seem like there is a bunch of attention being drawn to this. But from the technical perspective and from the actual market perspective, how do you manipulate the market to make it seem like there are actual people who are trading this, hundreds of people who might be trading this, when actually it could just be a couple. And so you put your money into that, and it's one or a couple people who have access to all of these different wallets that could buy immediately in bulk, bundles is what they call them, and sell in bundles, and basically just use it as a way to extract your money. So there's a bunch of different ways, and I could go on, but there's a bunch of different ways where the cards are stacked against you, and you are not going to succeed by blindly going into these spaces. And the longer that you find yourself in these spaces, you recognize that you are participating in something that is illegitimate.
And I want to go back to your whole statement about that meme coins are sexy, because it's very true. We did on the podcast, we just covered that Fidelity is doing crypto IRAs and they're doing crypto ETFs, and they're offering safer ways to get involved in crypto. But you're so right that everybody falls into the get rich quick schemes, and they're looking to make money faster. They don't want to hold on for the long term. I also think there's this deep belief like that crypto is magical because it's super unregulated, and like in time, as we're seeing, there are regulations in crypto, and actually not to be all over the place, but the automated market makers too. I'm pretty sure that that's in some D apps as well, like even on Ethereum with like lending crypto. They're like now doing like lending crypto as loans and stuff like that. So definitely you need to do your due diligence. And what you said was amazing about the bots and like trading. So many people don't know that it's not actual human beings creating all that volume for specific meme coins and even in lending and stuff like that. So incredibly insightful. Do you want to say anything else? I was going to switch gears and start talking about just briefly the Bitcoin conference that you went to and how that was. Do you want to switch gears?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So obviously you told me about a week ago that you went to one of the Bitcoin conferences, and surprisingly, I live in the North Shore area of Massachusetts, so I have not attended one yet, but I'm very curious to have everybody hear your experience, what you thought about it, benefits, cons, anything you feel important to share.
I think it's great to go attend these conferences to get a real sense of what is going on, and to show that there are actual faces, behind these projects, and people who have to represent themselves in a way that is different than they represent themselves online. What you have online is just a swarm of personas, and people cultivate their personas in ways that are going to benefit them on social media and in crypto. And so when you go to these, you actually get to hear stories from people. You get to hear more personal takes about why people are there. And I think you get to cut through a lot of the noise. And at the same time, you get to see some of the noise amplified and get a sense of what stories are popular at the time, or what stories people are trying to popularize at the time, because a lot of it is speculative futures of how these things are ultimately going to be used, and they're hardly being used right now. So I've mostly gone to the Bitcoin conferences. These were the conferences that made me realize that there's a big difference between Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies that are out there. Here you're going to find books written about Bitcoin, sort of cottage industry of books, people philosophizing about it, people coming from different perspectives and trying to make sense of social reality through Bitcoin and how Bitcoin might change it in a way that I haven't seen at other, like I went to Consensus as well, which is the biggest sort of altcoin, and Bitcoin as well, but mostly altcoin sort of conference that CoinDesk runs. And it's it brings a humbling sense of reality to this space that could be very unhinged. Yeah, I would just highly recommend going and feeling what it's like to be around actual people who believe in this stuff and who are willing to talk about it for hours on end.
Right. And it adds this layer of responsibility, like you were saying. You're not just
Absolutely.
talking, yeah, you're not just talking to somebody online about a meme coin or talking to somebody online about Bitcoin. You're actually talking to the people that created these projects. And there's a level of responsibility by them going to the conference, showing their face, and talking about these different kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, absolutely. Of course, the Bitcoin conferences are the community that you're looking for to get involved in crypto. But of course, you have to be very mindful of the people that go for the hype or might be lost in the hype of of crypto and all these extra meme coins and altcoins and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So so overall, you would say it's a good experience and it's worth going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially just focusing on the Bitcoin ones, like it's easy to forget that there is a huge infrastructure behind this political economy of a bunch of different types of institutions, a bunch of different players that are all coming together in a way that could seem ethereal when you're just participating in it in a digital space, but you go to these conferences and you see these sea trains full of miners, and you see a bunch of people who are actually making the hardware that makes this thing run. So it brings a sense of spatiality to it, of like, this is a real material thing. But it also shows you that there are people from all over the world who are willing to drop everything and change their lives to participate in Bitcoin or whatever it is at these conferences. It's humbling in the sense where you start to realize that a lot of these people have no idea what they're doing. I mean, there's a sense in which I could say that for myself. I had no background in finance or investing or anything, and now I'm researching it, and 5 years later, I'm considered some sort of expert on it. But that's what happens with everybody in this space to some extent, that is willing to drop everything. And sometimes it's like their job as a PE teacher or their job at Patagonia or whatever, and invest themselves fully into these networks. That's the fascinating part about it, is how people are opting out of things that they did before and are plugging themselves into this broader network, or if you're looking at the crypto industry more broadly, the sort of network of networks.
Yeah, it's all the excitement around it, but in this way, not necessarily a negative excitement, like looking into DeFi and like fintech and things that could genuinely better our future, better our finances, and have us work smarter, not harder. So let me ask you one final question. My final question to you is that where do you think we're going to end up in the future with crypto?
Oh boy. Well, right now, I think we are going to continue seeing more deregulation with the current administration, and it's a bummer in some way, because a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in this interview is going to continue to flourish, and I'm unsure of how people, like at least regulators in the US, are going to be handling the potential influx of people who are going to be dumping more and more money into this, and to see these, like the scam element of it, proliferate. I just saw something today that the UK has started arresting and interviewing influencers, like finfluencers, because they are pushing products that they are not authorized to push. And I'm not sure how much crypto is part of this this sweep, but there's a lot of these people are putting their names out there. It's a very social space, and even though there is a lot of sticky stuff and pseudonymity, there are a lot of people that I think deserve more attention for how they are leading people down these rabbit holes and getting them to join trading groups, which are basically just invitations into these very pump and dumpy kind of insider trading spaces. And that's there's an element of transparency there that I think they deserve to be um, you know, find or have these illegitimate operations, you know, have them cease to operate. I think that we're seeing a very sort of institutional kind of adoption that we've never seen before. When I was at the Bitcoin conference, I mean, you have a bunch of people there from the White House. You have JD Vance, you have Trump's sons who were there. You have senators, you have congressmen, you have people who are running for office. And so there is this very clearly political push that is happening right now that is, I think, a bit concerning, especially a lot of the people are that are most, I think, like raising their antennas about this are curious how much of a conflict of interest it's going to be. And I see that there can potentially be a lot of ways that foreign influence could creep in, or, you know, the trust in the US economic, you know, system could start to lose a little bit of its legitimacy because of its alignment with cryptocurrencies. But at the same time, you are just seeing a very different kind of movement than you did even a couple years ago, where some of the, you know, pushes for making this a very grassroots thing and to use Bitcoin as money, it's definitely not the popular narrative now, when you have people who are trying to become Bitcoin treasury companies and buy up as much Bitcoin as humanly possible. That raises my eyebrows, because you have people who are CEOs of companies that aren't even financial companies who are starting to accumulate Bitcoin ad infinitum and exposing themselves to risk that we have yet to see. That concerns me a little bit. Not all of these treasuries are going to be successful, and I would keep an eye on that. What happens when some of these treasuries start to fail, when we have a shedding of value that is going to highlight the systemic risk that is currently being created? So yeah, just more concerns than excitement on my end, honestly.
And that's fine. I will say that I am happy that we are open to crypto, and as a society that we look towards innovation instead of scaring it away or shying away from it, and trying to solve the issues within that instead of running from it. But you're right, there are a lot of issues with people, you know, having corporate treasury in regards to crypto and Bitcoin, and where that will end up for them, and the volatility and the actual value of Bitcoin, and some seeing it as digital gold and having crypto reserves. And there's just so much we could talk about from there. And I know we have to close up this podcast episode. I just wanted to say, Max, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Yeah, you were incredibly helpful in trying to educate and, you know, defeat the stigma around crypto and all the issues around it. Is there anything else you want to say before we close out the episode? Anything else about you or what you've done?
Keep a lookout for any research that I'll be coming out with in the next year or so. Right now, I'm trying to write about parasitic capital, a lot of what we were talking about earlier with meme coins, and really trying to illuminate what this sort of insidious logic is. So I hope to be starting to publish stuff around that later this year and in the coming year.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's going to be published on your website, correct?
Yeah, I'll post everything new as soon as it comes out to my website.
Amazing. Yeah. So definitely everybody will have that resource for them here. But this was incredibly helpful. Definitely, Max. We will be in touch with each other in the future for crypto. Maybe I'll see you at one of the conferences.
Yeah, come on.
Maybe. But I just want to say thanks again. And for everybody listening, I will see you guys next Monday for Cryptic Humility. Thank you.